What is up YouTube, and welcome to this The Crown Season 4 video, or The Queen as I kept calling it for some reason, much to my partner's frustration. That, or it might have been the screaming "We Stan" every time Diana, played by Emma Corrin, was on screen. Now, I'm not a royalist, but this show is beyond well made, and I absolutely adored this season. Now, while I did enjoy Season 3, last season felt quite middling. It might have been the focus on Charles, who really to me has never really been interesting outside of the Diana saga, or that the jump from Claire Foy to Olivia Colman was totally jarring. But I'm pleased to say that The Crown has reached dizzying heights this season, as the actor who plays Charles is really given some meaty scenes to showcase his talent, and Emma Corrin is uncanny as Diana, which gave me goosebumps every time she was on screen. In any other season, Gillian Anderson's portrayal of Thatcher would be the entire focal point, but this season has moments upon moments that grip you. If there was one criticism, it would be that the 80s, the turning point of Britain's fortunes on the world stage after a post-war slump, well, we only focused on joblessness and not the winners of Thatcher's policies, such as the yuppies and the city bankers. Even the losers didn't properly get a look in, as we didn't even visit the miners' strike, while in previous seasons, major events at the time largely forgotten by history were the focal point of whole episodes. There will be spoilers in this video as we break down the season and have a whistle-stop tour of all the moments I googled thinking, did this actually happen? I mean, did she really give him a VHS tape of her singing Phantom of the Opera? Because, man, that was a flex. We open with mentions of the Troubles in Northern Ireland, a turbulent time in British history with a brutal bombing campaign of Britain by the IRA, and we even missed out the bombing of the Brighton Conservative Conference, which for some reason was omissed from this. But there was a brutal occupation as well as Northern Ireland by the British military, and we have Charles Dance once more as Mountbatten, attempting to convince Charles to give up his affair with Camilla Parker Bowles. Charles is now dating Sarah Spencer, and he meets future wife and People's Princess Diana in what could be described as just a leaf dress. Now, it's interesting because that possibly did not actually happen. It was, while he met her, it was probably just grandiose stuff for Netflix there. And this is all the while Thatcher, who took a look at society and went, wow, let's just make poor people's lives worse, and got elected to be the first Prime Minister that's a female, and we did have Theresa May recently as the second, who again looked at poor people and went, let's make their lives worse. But Mountbatten and Charles have an argument just before he is blown up by the IRA, and while this happened, simultaneously, there was 18 soldiers also killed near the border in one of the bloodiest moments of the Troubles there. This brought attention to the increasingly escalating violence in Northern Ireland and forever stamped the IRA as a criminal organisation in Thatcher's eyes, which influenced her policies on Northern Ireland, leading to a big hunger strike which resulted in the death of notable character Bobby Sands. The Troubles would not end until 1994, and the bomb maker who made the bomb that killed Mountbatten was freed from prison as part of the Good Friday Agreement, which thankfully stands right up until today. Diana reveals herself to Charles once more, offering condolences, cementing herself in his mind as he's been fully warned of Camilla, but only for now, as he asks Sarah Spencer's for permission to ask Diana out. Of course, he's still into Camilla in the back burner, but they go to the opera and decide they can't meet until autumn. In reality, Charles actually met her again indoors when she offered the condolences, and he leapt upon her, trying to get some of that. But yes, she felt, do people really do this? That's not how people do that. So again, dramatizations there, which I think the real version is a bit more interesting. The episode is first of many moments in the show that makes us dislike the royals, as the period of time and the events that will be shown next season is when public opinion of the royals starts to wane heavily. Maggie is elected and reads the prayer of St. Francis, and Gillian Anderson is spellbinding as her. Thatcher heads to Balmoral, the royal holiday home, and is instantly out of place, as while she is in a high position, she's not from high society, and that is the big thing here. It's all about women who are sort of out of place, very much like Diana. But Thatcher is a self-made woman who looks down on those who are handed things or just generally down in their luck. She sees this whole jaunt as a waste of time, and her and her husband Dennis Thatcher struggle to fit in with the royals, who now seem a relic of the past, as she wants to get down and work because the country's in a bad shape, in particular cut public spending heavily. But the royals just say there's always a crisis or crises in British life, but that doesn't fly, because why should there always be a crisis or crises? I'm never sure there, but the Queen says it correctly. She's out of place with the hunting, the parlour games, and almost everything at Balmoral, as the Balmoral test is mentioned, which she fails spectacularly, while Diana, who was invited by Charles after Camilla told him to call her, which he does, and Emma Corrin's Diana passes the viewership test and the Balmoral test with flying colours in my eyes here. And while the whole thing with the hunting probably didn't happen, it's just a metaphor for her fitting in and really faking it till you make it. The family now expects poor Charles to marry her, as well she's won over Philip, but well, she wants to take the title of Princess of Wales, and Thatcher also decides to cut her cabinet of wets. They were the people who opposed her hard-line policies of spending cuts and nationalisation of the UK's precious national resources and systems, a mistake that the effects of which are still felt to today. Poor Diana is hounded by the media, which was a gift and a curse to her nonetheless. She is proposed by Charles, and being urged to by his family, he finally does the deed, but he doesn't get on his knees there. Yeah, well, that sets us up for a poor relationship. However, later in the season he notes that he only met her a handful of times before this, but in reality they met at least 13 times before the engagement, and she is subsequently rushed into staying at the palace to keep her safe from the media, but majorly struggles with protocol, just like Thatcher did at Balmoral. She was all alone, but one major friendship was missing from this whole whistle-stop tour of 1980s royalty, and that was her friendship with Elton John. I'm not sure why it's missing, as their friendship was so deep. He changed some lyrics in Candle of the Wind and sung that at her funeral in a touching moment. Now, Charles tries to have the best of both worlds and wanted to get Camilla to befriend Diana, possibly, hopefully, also to get her to fit in this world, but really it would never work, as Charles would show her no affection, despite her being an absolute bombshell. But his heart was for Camilla, and Diana and Camilla were spotted together in public in real life, but Diana would later say in 1995, in an interview to Panorama, there were 3 of us in this marriage. Yes, that famous interview with Martin Bashir, where she said she feared for her life. Now, we saw a hint of that in the final episode, where she accuses Philip of threatening her. Now, in episode 4, Thatcher appears distracted, as her son Mark Thatcher is missing, as the themes of favourite children come to the forefront. Mark went missing during the Paris-Dakar rally, and he famously said later in life that he had no preparation, and then when he was saved, he ran up a ridiculous drinking bill with his father after being rescued. He is clearly Maggie's favourite, infamously benefiting from his mother's political career, hinting at when Maggie refused to stop apartheid that her son has interests in South Africa. He was even complicit in a coup in Equatorial Guinea in 2004 and remains to be a bit of a dick. In comes Prince Andrew, clearly Queenie's favourite. I think maybe because he was lowered down in the succession and Charles and Anne were born for duty and the others were born for fun. Well, it does seem interesting, as amid the growing backdrop of the Argentinian invasion of the Falklands, Andrew was actually in the military, and he even served on HMS Invincible, part of the group of ships sent to the Falklands. Again, I feel they could have made multiple seasons from these overlooked moments. We even saw him with Sarah Ferguson, but they later divorced, and unfortunately, their wedding was overlooked by the scandal in a later episode. Now, the task force leaves for the Falklands, which is a pivotal moment in Thatcher's career, an expensive war that even her close ally Ronald Reagan was not really happy with. And it's a strange decision to remove all of this, and I wonder if later seasons will get to know the true Prince Andrew there, as there are hints of him with underage girls, but he says it's art, so there is foreshadowing there. Now, episode 5 deals with Michael Fagan, a 34-year-old painter-decorator disillusioned with society in our own version of the Crown's Joker movie, and under Thatcher's premiership, that led to staggering unemployment, but made city bankers rich and certain people rich. She reduced public spending dramatically and made sure that manufacturing went abroad and effectively destroyed the coal mining industry in later years. Now, while this was in 1982, this episode, the miners' strike of 1984 is baffling missing from this season. You see, Britain was becoming less reliant on coal, and Thatcher, wanted to get rid of these coal pits, but these coal pits more than likely, did actually employ entire towns of people, so their employment was absolutely broken. Now, while that was in 1984, that gives us an insight into the mind of Thatcher and how she just didn't really care about people who were struggling, and she removed the social safety net, which makes Britain so great. Yes, he did break in, but the conversation is largely fiction here and dramatised, as in reality, Fagan said that a footman took him to get some whiskey, but in the show, we see him brought tea. Episode 6 focuses on the iconic tour of Diana and Charles across Australia, similar to the one his parents went on in the 1950s. Weirdly, their wedding was absolutely glossed over, despite being, at the time, the biggest TV broadcast in history, with 750 million viewers estimated. Now, Diana taking William was a big one, as it exposes the Queen as being a hands-off parent, and she does admit in the season that she did make some mistakes there. They flounder in Australia at the start, with the press not happy with Diana calling Ayers Rock Ayers Dock and generally looking glum. In reality, both of them tired and glum, and they look like this in the photos, with Charles making insensitive remarks, angering the press. Now, at the time, the royal aides did say that this was just jet lag and issues with the heat, and I do take umbrage with the fact that Diana is made to look like an absolute wetty here. Now, Diana cannot stand to be away from William, and in reality, she did try to see him as much as possible, and then accusing Charles of seeing Camilla, as he had the cufflinks at their wedding that had their sort of insignia, and the bracelet that had both of their pet names in each other. These were true. That did happen and was included in a book on Diana's life. But they do, in this story, sort of reconcile. So this is where Diana Mania then became real, as the public adored her, and they embraced each other, which means that Charles did bin off Camilla for a bit. For now, at least, Charles was always the focal point until Diana started embracing the public, who loved her for just being real and a proper mother. Charles is furious that Diana overshadowed him, and this was supposed to be his moment, but I can't help but think maybe if he did actually embrace Diana, then he would have his moment. The public, and it's just of the time, it's hard to really understate how much the public adored Diana. The woman at her death almost brought down the entire royalty because she was so adored. And yes, I will never forget that the day that she died, when I turned on the news to watch, or at least I turned on Nickelodeon to watch Digimon, and the news was on. Now, the backdrop of Australians wanting to end the Queen as a head of state was real, and thanks to Diana, that was a dream that was dead, as Diana was so very popular. The frictions between Diana and the Queen begin as she rushes to the Queen and asks for help with Charles, but the Queen does take Charles' side, and she is most notably not a fan of her, and after her death, she appeared cold, uncaring in 1997, which was the worst period of PR for the royals. Now, episode 7 to me is truly the lowest point of the season, as we had episodes upon episodes building upon multi-story threads focusing on the Argentinian War, but we deal with the focus on Princess Margaret, who is immensely unlikable this season. And while she was a bit of a female cad, now she's just nasty to outsiders like Thatcher, Diana, and many others. But she did have very real health problems and was on Charles' side in regards to Diana, and as the order of succession kind of got longer, she was bumped down, much to her upset. But it focuses on her finding something to do, and the focus was on the royal sisters sent to an institute due to their learning difficulties, but Margaret did not find them. In reality, it was the media who found the two sisters in 1987 amid a gigantic scandal that was feared would bring the Queen's lineage into question due to inbreeding as the actual divine right in which the Queen has. The idea is that she is given a mandate by God to rule over her subjects. But if there are problems with that lineage and it's not pure, yes, that is hanging by a thread, as the Queen Mother says. Now, sadly, this would have been a great episode in a season that did not have so many great stories, perhaps last season, but we move swiftly on to Apartheid. And if you've seen Lethal Weapon 2, you're well aware of this, or read a history book about Nelson Mandela, the creator of the Mandela effect. I'm joking there, of course. Apartheid was a brutal and disgusting system, but Maggie didn't seem to care, at least how she's portrayed in the show, as they made the UK money and she wanted to move away from the Commonwealth. However, in private, in real life, she was truly against the imprisonment of Nelson Mandela and apartheid itself, because not only was it, cruel, but it made no sense when it came to economics. And, well, she did actually believe that sanctions were a waste of time, as we saw here, but this is largely fiction and doesn't really get a lot right. She refuses sanctions, and it's leaked to the Sunday Times that the Queen was deeply unhappy with her. Yes, this did happen, and it was a major issue, and the palace had to throw Michael Shea under the bus. Of course, Mandela was later freed. While there was back and forth with the Commonwealth, this portrayal doesn't really show how she really felt. Luckily, we move back to the most gripping part of the season, and that is Diana, as they are at the Royal Opera House in 1985. I couldn't work out what the musical was. I did try to look it up that they were looking at, but yes, she did really dance with Wayne Sleep, a legendary British dancer, as they danced to Uptown Girl, which absolutely angered Charles. This did indeed really happen, as Diana tries to make their marriage work, and the avalanche, yes, that did also happen. She would later give Charles a VHS. If you don't know what that is, you're very young, and it was a tape. You're probably wondering what a tape is. Well, that is what we used to record TV shows or video or anything. And you're probably very lost with what I'm talking about. But nonetheless, she was singing a song from Phantom of the Opera, and I believe it was All I Ask. And this is my personal favourite of one of my favourite musicals of all time. However, Charles, like a total dickhead, makes fun of it to Princess Anne, who, again, is also a massive dickhead. But yes, she was an Olympian in real life as well. But Diana, after all of this, after they're trying to save the marriage, she calls back her lover James Hewitt. He was one of the most high-profile affairs and is rumoured to be the father of Prince Harry instead of Charles. However, yeah, there's no proof of that, but I mean, seriously, come on, look at him. Thatcher is then turned on by her biggest supporter, Geoffrey Howe, which was an all-out attack on her, as Philip references the Ides of March, which also makes a comparison to her being cut down like Caesar was, but the daggers here are just words. And she mentions that he might have been offended at being a deputy PM, with John Major receiving the job instead, himself a future Prime Minister. She faces a leadership contest which can happen for a sitting PM, as the Conservatives have it every year, and well, she doesn't receive a majority and then goes to resign. Yes, that is that for her, and I'm very excited. I hope we skip John Major, the most boring PM I think I can remember in recent history, and move straight to New Labour with Tony Blair, and I'm very excited to see the 90s. But Diana then goes to visit New York in one of her most iconic and triumphant visits, and she did indeed hug a child with HIV, improving the public perception of their disease. and, well, she wins. She has gained herself a reputation beyond being a royal. Well, of course she's a royal, and she's the mother to the future King of Britain, but, well, nonetheless, she can now be separated, and they did get separated in 1992, leading to a divorce and things like that. So it's going to be interesting where they go next, but I love this season. It was easily my favourite, but I think while the problems I had with it, that they didn't explore certain avenues too well, it's always been about the crown, and the wider British problems are a backdrop and story narrative or plot device to what happens within the palace. So I enjoyed this. The absolute amazing performances were something else. But Philip later does threaten her as he no longer sees himself in her, and to be honest, the animal stalking, like I said, probably didn't happen. However, we're now set for Elizabeth Debicki to take over the role next season, as she will slay in the revenge dress, and the subsequent separation and death of Diana will continue for 2 seasons over 5 and 6. But that's it for this video. I did not expect it to be this long, but it's almost 25 minutes of recording. God knows how long it's going to be when I edit it. But I will see you soon. Please do drop a like, please do subscribe, and I'll see you soon, and goodbye.